Princess, you're alright. Flame Princess, you're okay. Mulberry Princess could be better. All of the princesses are pretty alright, but oh, bubblegum, you look like a lot of fun. I'm right outside, and that is how I know. Hey Princess, did you get my text? With the picture of my awesome gun show.
Hey guys, so the Battlefield beta has concluded, and a lot of people have been saying different things about the game, what's good, what's bad, and I thought I'd share with you guys some of the notes I kind of took while I was playing the beta about some of the things I think worked really well for Battlefield Hardline, and some of the things I think were a little bit of a step backwards. So first of all, in terms of gunplay, I mentioned in a previous video I'd actually talk about the gunplay and how it feels once I played it more. And I gotta say I like the gunplay in this game. There's a lot more recoil, there's a lot more skill-based mechanics, I guess you could say, in the game that they've been placed. And this is really fun for me because I felt like Battlefield 4 is a little bit too easy in terms of recoil. I like it when games challenge you to have to compensate for recoil. I think it just makes the skill cap a little bit higher. It makes the learning curve a little bit steeper, and steep learning curves are something I always love because it gives you that much more sense of accomplishment when you get better at the game. Faster times to kill also goes under the same category. It takes about 1 to 2 bullets less for each gun in the game to kill an enemy. So it's a little bit different, but it's something I was definitely getting used to and I quite enjoyed by the end of my time. It doesn't make it unfair for anyone because if you get the jump on someone else, you have the same chance of killing them as they do of you. I guess that could be countered in people saying that you don't have as much time to counter the attack if someone sees you first and they jump you. Anyways, I think it's something that is an interesting change. I don't know if it's going to be good or bad, so that's something other philosophers will have to debate about. In a video a long time ago, before the beta had even been aired, I talked about how I thought Hotwire actually wouldn't be a good game mode because Battlefield 4 vehicle physics are abominable. They're horrible. The cars go jumping all over the place. They don't have the proper weighting. It just feels like you're like in an RC car in a world that's our size. It just was really out of place, I felt, at least in Battlefield 3 or Battlefield 4. And yeah, I guess part of that's kind of true. The vehicle physics are still quite messed up. They feel kind of like they do in Need for Speed Rivals, so it's kind of arcadey. I think the biggest thing they could do if they wanted to fix this is make the cars a little bit heavier. I don't know how you do that, but putting the gravity a little bit higher on cars than it is right now, I think that could probably help or at least work towards fixing that. So I think that's something they should consider maybe, is turning the gravity up on cars. But don't get me wrong, I enjoyed the driving mechanics and everything. I enjoyed it overall. There's just a few little tweaks I think could be made to improve it for the better. The sniper is an interesting class as it's gotten buffs in some regards and nerfs in others. No longer do you have a vapor trail following your bullet. And I think this is wonderful. A lot of people used vapor trails to spot where their bullet was going and to allow them to make a better second follow-up shot. But I personally never used this, and I actually did a lot better when I went back into Battlefield 3 and would try sniping. Just because I could actually see the bolt. When you have a curved bullet vapor, it actually kind of disrupts what you're actually seeing. So if you see a trail, you may see the up and the down part of the I can't really explain that, but vapor trails are a no-go in my book. I absolutely don't like them. They didn't really make realistic sense either, so their purpose was really muddled in my book, but I know some people probably won't like that. The Magnum rounds, which were in Bad Company 2, are back, and they do a lot of damage against helicopters. This is something that was really over the top. My friend Althios made a great video that showed him taking out a helicopter in 2 to 3 shots. I mean, it made the RPG completely useless. You might as well just use Magnum ammo. It was like condensed RPG shots. It was absolutely preposterous, and they did end up nerfing this, or if they didn't before the end of the beta, I think they will before the end of the game. They made it in like something like a forum post, I think. So that won't be something we have to worry about. But something I thought they could try, and I think it's something they were going to end up doing, as kind of on the fringes of my memory here. I think they said they were going to reduce the distance that it did that much damage. So I think it still will do a lot of damage up close, but when you're at distance, the Magnum rounds won't do like 73 damage to choppers, like things like that. It's ridiculous. And also, I think they did a great thing by making the reticle closer for snipers. This is something I think is actually wonderful, and I think it kind of negates the fact that now the straight pull bolt and the laser pointer are now in the same class of attachments to put on the sniper rifle. I think this is just perfectly fine because it basically now most sniper rifles act as if you have a laser sight on them by default by having that reticle so close together. So I'm kind of fine with it. It doesn't really bug me. If you followed anything even remotely related to Battlefield Hardline's second beta, you'll know that shotguns are the devil. They are the devil incarnate. They were absolutely horrible. They're so OP. I think the biggest problem with them is it's fine that they do one-shot kills up at close range. That's what they're good for. That's their whole purpose in a game, is to one-shot people at close range. But when you're able to one-shot people at medium and occasionally long range, that's when things get a little bit out of hand. And I mentioned in a previous video, I think it's just because they kind of copied over the stats from Battlefield 4. So I don't know if that's the case, but that's kind of what I think happened. And yeah, so they're being nerfed. It's confirmed to be nerfed. I don't think there's too much that really needs to be said there. The game modes in this game really fit the theme. So you have Heist replacing Rush, you have Hotwire not really replacing Conquest, but working in tandem with Conquest to create similar types of game modes. Hotwire is pretty neat. I think you get a lot of points by just driving around in cars, so it kind of promotes for some people just driving around in cars over and over again. On the other hand, it does promote other people trying to then kill the people in the car, so that's where the actual like first-person shooter side of things gets in. So I do think Hotwire is pretty fun, and as I mentioned, it was my favorite game mode in the beta. So I really do think the Visceral kind of came in guns blazing, really wanted to prove something, prove that yes, we can make a game that's at least playable at launch. And I think this game is going to be really fun. I think that a lot of people are going to kind of change their minds about the Battlefield franchise as a whole based off of this game, but we'll have to, of course, wait and see. Now, this game is not perfect. While I did like it, there were a lot of glaring issues. My first was, as I mentioned before, no sniper C4, and I don't really see why that needed to be done. I mean, I guess the Magnum ammo, honestly, the Magnum ammo probably just completely negated the fact that you needed to have any sort of other anti-vehicle weaponry. But I think once that does get nerfed, they really should consider giving the sniper back C4 because it does add so much more versatility to that class. That in combination with the lack of destruction, there's so much less destruction in this game than there was in Battlefield 4 even, and much more so in Battlefield 3. Why can't we get a game that takes Zeba Tower, that takes some of the single player elements from even like the beginning of Battlefield 3's campaign? If you remember that, you're going through a subway, you're shooting up people in the subway, and there's cushions being shredded, there's walls being torn to pieces. Where's that micro destruction? We've seen it even in one of the gameplay trailers for Hardline's launch. I'm not seeing it. I think someone argued that that was because that was for, I think, something called Motel, a level called Motel, or smaller level, and it was a limitation of the netcode or something. I'm not sure if I buy that, because I've seen that it can be done in levels like Zeba Tower, in a lot of close quarters combat from Battlefield 3, from a lot of those things. Micro destruction, I really do believe is possible. I'm just not sure why. I mean, there's got to be another reason. Of course, maybe because I understand nothing about game development, maybe I'm just overstepping my bounds here, but I'd love to see more destruction. It just feels like it's really lacking, and it almost feels like Battlefield is taking steps backwards when it comes to destructionable environments. Uniform soldier aim was a big gripe a lot of people had, and I really missed that as well. I couldn't snipe as well as I felt like I should because I didn't have uniform soldier aim. If you guys don't know what that is, it's basically something that keeps your mouse sensitivity uniform between when you're aimed, when you're zooming down a scope, and when you're just shooting from the hip. But I really did miss that, and I think people kind of overreacted, some YouTubers who I'm not going to name, because that's obviously going to be in the final product. I don't see why people were freaking out. Sure, I was a little bit bugged why we didn't have that in the beta, but I wasn't freaking out. It's not a big deal. It's going to be in the base game. It's a very low chance that it's not going to be there. Why it wasn't in the beta, I don't know, but I'm pretty sure that's going to be in the base game. People need to calm their tits. Other than that, this game was wonderful. I loved it. 7 to 8 out of 10, I'd say, probably, in my book. But we'll have to wait and see, because a lot of things can change between now and the launch of this game. Before I shut down here, I just wanted to let you guys know that I'm going to be releasing episodically a little podcast I did the other day where we fleshed out a lot more of the points that I've kind of touched upon here. And we kind of went more into the detail of what was good, what was bad about Hardline, how can they improve it, what can they tweak. And I was with Althios, who set up the whole thing, put a lot of work into it, so cheers to that good old lad, my best mate on YouTube here. Also, there was Dolce, great cinematic Battlefield 4 guys. You guys definitely know who he is. If you don't, you're really missing out. And then there's Hadoukens, who is a former pro player for Battlefield 4, and he gave us very valuable insight into the competitive scene as well as other aspects of the game. But anyways, do stay tuned for that, because that was really neat, especially if you guys watch those guys on YouTube. You may be interested to see what some of their thoughts were on the game. Anyways, stay tuned for that. But that's all for today, so I'll see you guys in the next video.